Alright, so 1.13 was about a year ago, but better late than never. So, Minecraft 1.13 finally brought a big update to the game after years of basically nothing, and I think they did a really good job. But here are a few of my own ideas that I think could have made Minecraft 1.13 even better. So let's get into it. Now, one of the key features of Minecraft 1.13 was that blocks could be waterlogged, which meant that you wouldn't get these ugly air pockets on non-full blocks when you place them underwater. And that's great, but I think they could have taken it one step further. First of all, some blocks, such as doors, still can't be waterlogged, so I think they should start by fixing that. And when it comes to glass panes, I think Mojang could do something clever, like only waterlogging half of them, so that you could use them as windows for aquariums, because that doesn't work right now. But most importantly, what I think they should add is the ability of flowing water to waterlog blocks. Now, this would allow water to flow over slabs and stairs and through doors, and I think this would make it look just a lot more natural. But this would mean that every time you open the door to your underwater house, water would just flow in. So I've come up with a solution for that, which is a kind of airlock system. First, you'd open the front door and let the water flow in, but you'd also go inside the airlock. Then you'd close the front door so all the water drained out, and then you'd open the second door and get into your house without any water coming in. Also, let's not forget lava mechanics, because they're just the same as the pre 1.13 water, and I definitely think that lava should just behave in the same way as water. Now, since animated textures seem to be a thing in 1.13, I think they could be applied to more blocks, especially water. An idea I came up with was white water, which is that the further water falls, it gains a kind of whiter texture, which means that flowing water actually can look like rapids and look much cooler. This would also have like a particle effect of like water spray. I also think waves could be a thing. Just animating the texture of water near the shore like I've done here would look quite nice. Also, it doesn't always need to be underwater things that are animated. I think animating grass blowing in the wind on savanna biomes would be a nice touch. Next, I want to talk about tides. Now, I think tides would be a really cool addition to the game because they'd introduce a lot of new features like hidden caves that are only exposed at low tide and rock pools that only appear when the tide goes down. However, I do get from a performance point of view that adding or removing thousands of blocks to make the tides work probably would produce a lot of lag and may not be added to the game. However, I still think the aesthetics of the tides could be used. This would include tide lines like the one that I've created out on mossy cobblestone here, and also caves that are only just above the sea level. And I think rock pools could also just be a feature on their own. Next, I'd just like to talk about a potential bug I've found. So I've noticed when you're swimming underwater and you come up to the surface gently, then it doesn't actually let you out of the water. You're just stuck underneath it so long as you keep swimming. I mean, maybe it was intentional so that the game doesn't kick you out of the swimming animation every time you approach the surface. But then again, it does feel weird being trapped under the water, so... Anyway, now the next idea I have is currents. Water source blocks that behave just like flowing water blocks in that they are able to push the player and items around. Now the primary use I see for this is rivers, because rivers are flat in Minecraft and they don't flow anywhere, so I think it would be cool for them to have a current that goes along out to the sea, for example. Another use I can think of is ocean currents, currents that take you out to sea and maybe to another continent. The whole point of this is for the player to be able to manipulate currents, to maybe create artificial rivers or make ocean highways out of currents that send you to another place. Now, there already is a kind of way to produce current blocks in Minecraft, but this is more of a glitch. And I was thinking of ways in which you could make a water source block flow in a particular direction. Maybe you could implement it using pistons. If a piston pushes into a water source block and then retracts, it would make the water source block flow in that particular direction. Or maybe you could use the soul sand and magma blocks, which are already used in creating bubble columns, in order to create these currents. The soul sand would push water away from it, so it'd create currents going away from it, but the magma block pulls stuff in, so it'd create currents going towards it. Now, next up, I have a block idea. This would be a kind of gravel 2.0, a kind of pebbly thing, but more orange in colour. Now, the reason I would like this is because it could be added to riverbeds and create shingle beaches, which I think would be a really nice touch. Speaking of beaches, why not add palm trees? Now, these would probably grow on beaches next to jungles or beaches bordering coral reefs. And to avoid adding yet another wood type, I think palm trees should just be jungle trees that are grown on sand. And I've just used stripped logs as a placeholder, but I think coconuts could grow on these trees and you could use them as a food source. Now, I think overall Minecraft could have a bit better terrain generation, so I just made this arch to show what that could look like. In Mesas you could also find this arch eroded away by the wind. By the way, what do you think of my first ever piece of terraforming? I tried to make it as vanilla as possible, like it was just naturally generated terrain. And I'm pretty pleased with it. Now here's the one you've all been waiting for. It's whales. This would be an absolutely massive mob, and I think it would look pretty cool. And they'd be quite rare, they'd only spawn in deep ocean away from land. And if you were to attack them, I think they'd give you something like a tail slap or something like that. On the topic of mobs, let's talk about dolphins. Just as an idea, I think it would be cool if dolphins hunted fish in the same way that wild dogs hunted sheep. And here's another bug for you. If you're on a boat, then dolphins will move insanely fast. I don't know what the reason is for this, but it's probably a bug that needs to be fixed. Finally, we'll wrap up this video on the topic of ice. So 1.13 saw the introduction of icebergs, and I don't know about you, but they look kind of off. And that's probably down to the fact that ice in Minecraft is blue, when in the real world icebergs would look white. So my solution is to just cover icebergs in a layer of snow so that they look a bit more natural. Another problem I have is that blue ice just looks a bit ugly, randomly sticking out of icebergs. So I think instead of putting blue ice on the outside of icebergs, I think icebergs should have a core of blue ice instead. An ice related thing that I think Mojang should add is glaciers. Now I tried making crevasses and ice caves in my glacier, but it was too small. Nevertheless, I think glaciers and ice caves would be a nice feature to have in the game. So now we're at the end of this video. I'd like to talk about the disgusting thumbnail and title that I put on it. I mean, I'm not a fan of clickbait, but if you can't beat them, join them, I suppose. That being said, if there is anyone out there watching this video, do let me know in the comments whether you don't mind me using clickbait titles and thumbnails, or whether I should just lay it off. But anyway, I've been Thermal. Bye.